We're back to scout the Senior Bowl. We have Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt, Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton, and Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. How big of a week is Mobile for them? We'll tell you this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I got to kick this intro over to my guy, Mr. LSU, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X or Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Bengal Tigers, man. And what the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we bring you championship level content each and every day, 24/7, 365, man. Where we say what? That man, look, we talk about college football, we talk about NFL football, and like we like to say, everything starts with the NFL draft over here in DP. Today's show slate, man, we're going through some Senior Bowl scouting. Yes, Senior Bowl is upon us. It is 52 days away. DP, you didn't know I counted, huh? I counted. It is 52 days away, man. And listen, we get some highly talented quarterbacks. We talked about Spencer Rattler in previous shows, but we're going to talk about Tulane's quarterback, Michael Pratt. We're going to talk about Tennessee's quarterback, Joe Milton. We're going to finish up with a wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, man. So we're going to get this thing started. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt. Keith, I know that you watched him over the summer, and then, of course, now the 2023 regular season is done. When you see this young man, where is his game? Where is his strengths lie for him as an NFL prospect?
Yeah, it's so I think first of all, there's multiple strengths to Michael Pratt, right? And I'll start with the first, man. What people need to understand is that he has surprising athleticism, right? This is a guy that can get out the pocket and he can make plays. And I don't want to call it freestyle, because when you say freestyle, then people start to think that he's a guy that can't play on script and he has to consistently make off-script plays. And that's not the case. What I'm saying is that this is a guy that when things break down around him, he can escape that pocket. He has really good athleticism. I would almost say he's kind of somewhat sudden, right? There's a quickness to his process of escaping the pocket. And then you're talking about the adequate to good arm strength down the field, or multiple times you're talking about off-platform throws, being able to throw on the run and make those completions right down the field. So there are a lot there. Those are the probably two things with Michael Pratt. Now, if you ask him to be put into a system, right, you're talking about potentially the Vikings, the 49ers type system, right? Then you ask me, can he make those throws? And I would say yes, he has more than enough arm strength to make those throws. It appears that his processing is good to where he understands the game. And I always look for this, DP, and we'll consistently have this conversation throughout this draft process, is the neck up, right? How do they operate from the neck up? Does their process get sped up? And I don't see that with Michael Pratt, right? And that's a testament to his turnovers, right? He's only had thrown 5 interceptions, and I can't remember how many interceptions he threw the year before. But, man, he protects the football, right? And I think his answer, and he has an answer key, and his answer key for pressure is getting out of the pocket, extending the play, and doing something with that. So he's a guy, when I look at him, DP, I get the vibe of, you know what? I can either sit him the first year, right? Or I can kind of just spoon feed him slowly and feed the offense to him, and I potentially have a starting NFL quarterback on my hands. And I think that's a really good spot to be in, right? Like we all want to talk about the all-world guys and start day one and everything else, but we've seen how many times that can go bad, and we honestly seen how much you cannot get out of it. How much of the Carolina Panthers getting out of evaluating Bryce Young? How much is Bryce Young learning in the NFL right now with just a bunch of bad stuff around him, right? It probably make no difference if he doesn't play or if he's playing right now. And so my point for Michael Pratt is that this is a guy that you bring him along slowly, put him in the right situation. I think you have something on your hands.
No, I like that, Keith, and I agree with you. I think he's a day 2 pick, man. I can see that third round is kind of that sweet spot for him. But I think a week in Mobile where, I think if Jaden Daniels accepts his invite, right, the Heisman goes down there. We'll see how that works out with agent wise and just his draft stock in general. But if he were to be out there, right, you're gonna have Joe Milton, who we're gonna talk about a little later. There'll be some big names, some big bodies, some big arms, and a lot of different type of games out there. If Michael Pratt can go out there and have a good week, a successful week, it could put him maybe back into the second for a team that isn't in range, right, to get one of those quarterbacks. You talk about the Minnesota Vikings. If those guys aren't in range and if they're not going to be aggressive to go up, you can wait to day 2 and draft a Michael Pratt and feel good about putting him with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and the rest of the pieces they have in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, DP, and listen, we're talking about a lot of bad quarterback play in the NFL right now. I was just talking with somebody yesterday, DP, and you name off the amount of backup quarterbacks playing right now. You're talking about the Giants, you're talking about the Jets, right? The Saints, you might want to say that's a backup quarterback situation, right? Then you have the Raiders. You have Justin Herbert being injured right now, right? To where their backup quarterback is going to play the rest of the season. The Cincinnati Bengals. And I think there's probably three other names. So you're talking about almost a third of the league, DP, where there's backup quarterbacks playing. So that's why I say with Michael Pratt, you're talking about, a third rounder, and people kind of, they kind of sneeze at that, right? It's like, that's a third round pick. I want first round guys. Well, guess what? Aiden O'Connell went the back end of the draft, and he's the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas
Tommy
Raiders.
DeVito went undrafted.
Tommy DeVito went undrafted. So we're talking about a guy that is highly talented that you're going to see in the NFL level. Now the question is, like we said, what does he bring to the table? And I think he brings a lot of likable traits to the table. 100%. And there's a clip I'm going to post on Twitter, DP. And listen, I even seen him. I think it was against North Texas, right? And he kind of ran an end around. Well, it was a wide receiver screen, right? But it was a double wide receiver screen to where now he became the lead blocker on the play, right? Exactly. And you see him get up the field and he get after the defender. And it's like, you know what? You think about the discussions about Tommy DeVito, right? You think about the discussions with past backup quarterbacks that became NFL starters, right? Or those late round guys, what they all say about them. Man, they have a certain element of grit, right? The players, they gravitate to them. They're leaders, right? And just that little bit of play, that showed me enough that, you know what? He ain't scared, right? He's going to throw it all on the line for his teammates in order to make a positive play. And that thing translates not only to the offensive players, DP, but you know who else is looking at that? The defensive players. And they're saying, you know what? This is a tough dude. I could go to war with him.
Keith, and when I watched that same game and I saw touch, I saw timing, anticipation. There was a couple out routes where the ball is almost out of his hands as the receiver is rounding the break. And it's like, those are the type of things, the processing of information, reading coverages and stuff. Now, you want him to clean up some. He'll take some chances down the field.
He will.
You know what I'm saying? He's very fearless.
And the deep ball part, and we'll just, and so that way we can give both sides, right? Because that's what we do. We like to talk the NFL draft podcast, right? We'll give both sides of this real quick, DP. I'll talk about the not concerns, right, but the question marks. And that would be the consistent down the field accuracy, right, and decision making from times. And that's the one thing that he has to figure out. So if you're going to ask this guy to launch it on a dime, 60 yards down the field, of streaking wide receivers, I'm not necessarily sure how much you'll get out of that. But everything else I feel comfortable with.
No, 100%, Keith. And I'm glad you brought that up because that was, we got to paint the whole picture, right? Like, there are some things that you want to see him in Mobile. You want to see him go out there, operate the offense as it's designed and coached to him, right? But also, when you take those deep shots, let it be calculated. Don't just push it out. We went to the 2022 Senior Bowl, and we got Carson Strong out there just freelancing, doing his own thing, right? Testing windows that he shouldn't test, trying to prove he can run, trying to silence doubters. He was putting his efforts and his energy into a negative headspace, and it didn't make him look any better out there at practice. You want Michael Pratt to just go out there, run the offense, and like I said, if you're gonna take those deep shots, hey, make sure check the defense post snap. Is it too high safety? or is it one high? If it's one high, where is he aligned? Is he on the hash? Is he in the middle of the field? Where is he? Because that lets you know and gives you a better indicator on how big of a deep window you will have. So he's got some things he's going to have to prove, but the athleticism is there. I think he's got a good enough arm. He's accurate. I think, especially the first two levels of the defense, and I really like his anticipation overall.
Yeah, I agree 100% with DP. Let's keep this thing going, man. We're going back-to-back quarterbacks, and we're going with Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton, DP, and we're going to lay the scene, right? Because early on, you talked about this was one of the guys that you thought can come on the scene, right? When we did our Call Your Shot segment, he was a Call Your Shot guy, right? And then there were some hiccups throughout the season, but DP, I'm about to call my shot, man. I got something I want to say with this draft prospect, Mr. Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton himself. So y'all stay tuned, man. We about to have a really fun conversation. I'm about to mix some things up in here.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Guys, I know it's the holiday season, and typically what me and my family do, we come together the year before, we give gifts, but we pick names out of a hat to know who you're picking a gift for the following year. So it's always kind of stressful to pick out gifts, and whether it's gift cards, vacations, whatever, donate, whatever it is that you want to give somebody. It's not always easy, right? But at some point you have to focus on enjoying time together and enjoying time for yourself, right? So whether or not you and your family give gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And therapy is a great way to define that. Therapy is a great way to tap in and to make sure you have somebody unbiased, that's objective, that's going to listen to every part of your story and give you feedback. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton, Keith, was 6'5", 240, elite arm talent, good mobility. You said you were going to mix some things up. I'm not going to make the people wait, Keith. So when you watch Joe Milton, when you scouted him for this episode and you watched the tape, what did the tape tell you about this young man?
The tape told me that this guy has a lot to work with, DP. And listen, at the end of the day, we're going to have a conversation about Will Levis. We're going to have a conversation about Anthony Richardson. I'm going to sit it there and park it right there. Now, when you look at the statistically, right, he's very statistically comparable, right? 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think Anthony Richardson had 17 touchdowns and maybe 5 interceptions, and Will Levis was somewhere around that, give and take a couple more interceptions. So, but if you look at the physical tools, right? Arm strength, right? The mobility part of it, the athleticism part of it, to be able to throw off platform, the arm strength, the arm talent is all there. So I kind of want to push back on the narrative of, because I feel like there's a draft conversation of throw Joe Milton away, and that is not the conversation. Listen, we know how this process for the Senior Bowl goes, right? Where Jim Nagy talked about how, his scouts, they evaluate the talent, right? But then he also gets a gauge from the NFL, and that's how they kind of combine both of the situations to be able to dictate who's going to be the Senior Bowl invites. And guess what? I can see why the Senior Bowl scouts, I can see why the NFL DP is interested in Joe Milton, because the physical tools are there, and you have to look at it from the Tennessee perspective. I'm going to be honest, I just don't think this Tennessee team was as talented. I watched both sides of it, DP. I started off with the Vanderbilt game, right, where their team was clearly better, right? And that's when that was his best game of the season, 4 touchdowns, I believe, no interceptions. I watched the Georgia game, right, where they were clearly the inferior team in that game, right? I watched the Alabama game where it appeared that things were equal. And guess what? When they played the better team, DP, Joe Milton didn't look that good. When they played the team that they were better than, Joe Milton looked really good. When they played a team that they matched up with kind of on par, Alabama, you got a decent to solid Joe Milton quarterback prospect. So I thought it was a fun watch, DP. Joe Milton, like I said, I am moving him up on my draft boards, on my draft radar. I think there's a statement to be made, and I can't wait to see him at the Senior Bowl.
No, and keep that's where that encapsulates exactly how I feel, because it's been a roller coaster ride for me, man.
And listen, truthfully, his season has been a roller coaster, right? Because I think he started off, I want to say, because I went back and looked at, I think he started off maybe 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions or something like that to the season, and he was hot, right? And then they hit that rough patch of I think it was the Georgia Bama, right? They hit that kind of patch right there, and it kind of dwindled a little bit. And then he finished strong, like I said, against Vanderbilt, where it was the 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. But I also, and this is part of the scouting conversation, right? Because we did that, and I'm gonna flip it to you, but let's have fun with this conversation, right? When in regards to Joe Milton, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, right? There was a lot of discourse about both of them. Both of them, like we said, statistically, everything they probably played very similar, right? What were the separations for those guys? And then what's going to separate it for you with Joe Milton, whether you feel like he's a 3rd, 4th round pick or you feel like he's a 1st round pick, right? What's going to be the difference in conversation between Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Joe Milton? How are you, as a senior draft analyst, DP, going to decipher between the three? Because on the surface, right, their quick impact statement that we do for our scouting reports, it's probably going to be very similar.
Yeah, if with Anthony Richardson, I saw a guy that the tools for all of them were the same, right? Elite arms, big, strong, mobile. But I saw what separated Anthony Richardson from me was I saw him take over a couple games where those traits last year, like he didn't just have the traits, they translated. The traits translated on the field, where when I looked at Will Levis, I saw a guy that mentally was behind the 8 ball in terms of processing and different things like that. But when everything's on time, on rhythm, his traits were able to shine a little bit, right? When I looked at Joe Milton, I felt kind of right in that kind of Will Levis wheelhouse, where it's like, for me, there's some things that I want to see in Mobile, right? Where the arm talent, I think we're going to have some oohs and ah moments where that ball flies off his hand.
I believe so.
And there could be some tight ends and be like, we're going to let body catch, hit the pads. I'm not trying to catch that with my hands. We're going to have some of those situations where you're going to hit a thud of the football from his arm to the chest plate and the pads of his receivers, right? And we're going to see the deep ball, play action. I want to see how he handles, because that Josh Heupel offense doesn't get you prepared for the league. I want to see how we weren't able to see that with Hendon Hooker because he tore the ACL, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was at the Senior Bowl, but he couldn't do anything because he was hurt. So I want to see how Joe Milton handles that NFL coaching, right? See them put him in positions to let him let him be successful. And can he hit because the thing about it, Keith, the thing that when I watched him, for a guy with that big arm, this is where he has to improve. On the season, right? On the season in 2023, he completed less than 30% of his passes in the deep portions of the field, 20 plus yards down the field. He was 18 of 61. Now, when he hits big. Almost 750 of his passing yards came on those 18 completions. So he can stretch the field, but it's got to be he's. I'm gonna tell you the best way how I describe Joe Milton. He is a pitcher that's trying to add more pitches to his game. So he's a fastball guy. He's got that 110 mile per hour heat seeker. He can spin it, right? But can you develop that changeup? Can you develop that slider, that curve, and take something off of the ball? Because a lot of his misses, even when he has a guy stacked, he's struggling trying to put enough arc and decide how much arc to put on it. So I want to see him how to kind of handle NFL coaching to improve that part of his game, right? With the reps he'll get. But man, I mean, the tools are there, Keith. I think I gave him a developmental, I think high 4th round thing where I gave him, because it's like, all right, 3rd, 4th round, I feel real comfortable taking him there because I'm not starting him, right? Give him that Will Levis treatment, Keith. Let him sit behind the veteran. Now I know he's 20, he's gonna be 24 or whatever. I know like the age is gonna throw some people off, but age doesn't bother me as much if you have tools. If you're Kenny Pickett with an average arm, that's
a quarterback, right? We're talking about a quarterback where you can't touch him, right? If you touch him too hard or your elbow touches the helmet, it's a 15-yard penalty. DP, I just found myself, man, even watching the film, I'm like, that wide receiver dropped the ball.
Yes,
man, the wide receiver could have helped them out here. Now there were misses long, right? Mm-hmm. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, man, I'm saying the same thing I'm saying about Will Levis, and I'm saying some of the same things I'm saying about Anthony Richardson, which got me to think, DP, like just with the quarterback narrative and also the hype cycle and the groupthink part of it, right? Is that we were able to get really excited about those two guys right? And the momentum carried through draft season, and then Joe Milton possesses some of the same skill sets, right? And there's some big time throws across the middle of the field for Joe Milton too, where he put that ball in some tight windows. But the same conversation doesn't apply. I'm going to go ahead and I'd rather be aggressive today, right? What is today? December 14th. I'm going to be aggressive, right? When in this conversation, and then I'll allow him to kind of pull back for the Senior Bowl, right? If I fade back off of it, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to just kind of do the Simpsons meanwhile, just kind of fall into the bushes on Joe Milton. But really exciting prospect, man. And I
like that, Keith.
Yeah, I think his draft stock can be explosive. There's a lot of volatility one way or the other that can go.
He's got some mechanical things I want to see him improve. I think his inaccuracy at times, his feet, he tends to overstride at times with that open foot, that lead foot where he overstrides. He doesn't load the back foot and kind of just rotate through the torso to drive the ball. He's got an easy arm, right? I think was it against Virginia, maybe Austin P, where he throws like an easy 70-yarder with the flick of his wrist. And the receiver just dropped it. It was like a walk-in touchdown early in the season. I think that clip went viral. And it's like, man, if your receivers could just help you out a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with you. And I think for him, Keith, just literally just kind of working on the mechanics. I think if he works on those mechanics and irons them out a little bit, also against pressure, I saw he would not, you see some guys get happy feet and start scattering. He'll get stone-footed sometimes, just standing and then just try to rip it. Just all upper body. It's like you don't want that to happen because you're not getting enough of your body into the throw. So it's just some mechanical things you can work on.
Almost like Will Levis, right? Where we say just stand in the pocket too much. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. I'd rather us kick it off before anybody 100%. Else kicks this conversation off, man. But it was fun. It was exciting watching. If you guys haven't watched Joe Milton, definitely turn him on. I promise you, it's worth the watch, right? Whether you like him or dislike him after the watch, it's at least worth the watch. But DP, let's keep this thing going, keep it flowing, man. We were just in the SEC East. We're going to stay in the SEC East when we're going with wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Some people call him Ricky P. But, man, this wide receiver can make a lot of noise, right? Last year, we had Puka Nacua come to the Senior Bowl, man, and we see how that turned out to be one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. So, coming up next, man, we're going to talk about Ricky Pearsall and what is his draft profile headed into the Senior Bowl.
As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stays hot on FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Guys, right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, first things first, why are you thinking? Okay, let's put some action to it. And go do it. But secondly, there's no better time or place to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and guys, so much, I promise you, so much more that you can bet on. So go and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the season. Go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off or continue to kick off the NFL season because FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. We close this thing out with Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Keith, there's a lot on the line for Ricky at the scene in Mobile because you think about last year's Tank Dell. You said Puka Nacua, Dontavion Wicks, Jaden Reed. There are, Jonathan Mingo got drafted in the second round, right? Like the Senior Bowl matters for these wide receivers. The one-on-ones is going to be pivotal for guys to go out there and shine, Keith. So when you turned on the tape for Ricky Pearsall, what did you see that you liked and you want to see improvement, and how high are you going to be on Ricky P?
Yeah, I Ricky P. I like that. We got a coin there, DP. But nah, man, I think when I watch Ricky Pearsall, he's a guy that I just simply say has it, right? And listen, we get into scouting and we like to throw out functional athleticism and body control and wide catch radius and tempo route runner, right? We like to use all of these phrases, but sometimes it's just simple. You cut the film on and you say, this is a football player, right? And that's exactly what he is, man. It's a guy that understands how to get open. He understands the soft spots in zone coverage, right? When he's playing, man, he understands how to mix his tempo and releases, right? He get vertical. He has no problem making contested catches. This is the same wide receiver. Everybody's talking about, okay, Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. For those who don't remember, it's like, maybe have a visual memory, right? Remember the wide receiver that went viral for the Jordan catch, right? Where he reached out with one hand, legs wide open, spread that thing, and then went and got the football, right? Looked like Michael Jordan, the Air Jordan symbol, right? And he came down with the football. So I see toughness, right? And it's not the first one. He did it against LSU also, man. So this is a guy that I like I said, man, just where do I have him as of now? Third round. I think he can place himself firmly in that back end of the top 100 prospect, but also I wanted to bring the Puka Nacua conversation, right? Because when you think about those type of offenses, when those wide receivers and listen, Sean McVay and somewhat Kyle Shanahan, but we've seen it more with Sean McVay and his disciples as far as Kevin O'Connell, right? And then LaFleur, is that these type of wide receivers, when you can put them in motion in this type of scheme, right? And they know that they're going to get zone, the IQ and the functional athleticism is going to get them so much further, right? Like then potentially in other schemes. I don't think Ricky Pearsall is a 4-2, 4-3 guy, but I think he understands enough how to get open. And that's what we see with Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua wasn't going to blow anybody away on film as far as running a 4-2 or 4-3, but you liked him because you just said that he was a gamer. So I feel the same way about Ricky Pearsall, is that, you know what? I just want this guy on my football team. If he's a number 3, right, or somewhere in that threshold, exactly what I think about is that the Cincinnati Bengals, right? And you talking about paying Jamar Chase, and you're talking about what are you going to do with T. Higgins, and any combination of the Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and you have to let one of those guys walk. Ricky Pearsall, in my opinion, can be a good throw-in, and I think he'll have an immediate impact because he's an experienced guy, and you can just tell how savvy he is as a player just watching the game film.
No, 100%, Keith. I agree with you. He has a veteran feel to his game, right? Like we talk about tempo and routes and understand how to attack leverage and, like I said, settle down, not just locate the soft spots in his zone, settle down and make himself available. But also I think he's good after the catch as well, who has spatial awareness, the feel for defenders that are kind of crowding and closing in on them. But the ball skills, right? He's listed at 6'1", 192 pounds. He's probably 6 foot 190, right? More than likely that's what he's going to measure in at. Maybe 5'11", 6 foot. We'll see. But we take it back to Tank Dell and guys who are built like this, who aren't 6'2", legit 6'2", 200 pounds. Oh man, he's got to play in the slot, right? He's got to play in the slot. He's got to be lined up inside. No. You look at how Bobby Slowick has done what he has done with Tank Dell prior to the injury. Tank played a lot on the outside for the Texans, but it was how he played on the outside. He wasn't outside the numbers, tight to the sideline. No, because that's putting him at a disadvantage. You slide him inside the numbers, he's still a Z receiver, and now he has a two-way go essentially and more space. And the more that NFL offensive coordinators and play designers understand this, the more we can kind of get away from having to throw every non-6'3" receiver into the slot. So, I think Ricky Pearsall, the toughness, and it was, was it the South Carolina game where he basically ended that game? You know what I mean? Like he called game. You know what I mean? And the toughness, the grit, the competitiveness, the ball skills. I love to see a guy go outside of his body, outside of his frame, right, and pluck the ball at the highest point. You know what I mean? We talked about Troy Franklin and this or that this past week, last Friday, Keith. And what was one of my biggest knocks on Troy? Troy doesn't elevate for the ball. Troy waits for the rainbow. He waits for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow to fall to him instead of going up and say, listen, that's my money. Let me go get that. Ricky Pearsall goes up and gets it, whether it's one-handed, two-handed. He's got body control, gets 2 feet down. He's an impressive guy. I think that third round, man, legit is a really good spot for him. Like you said, you think about the Tyler Boyds. I know another guy I thought about was Jacoby Myers. You know what I mean? Which I think he's a better athlete than Jacoby. I think he's quicker and more sudden and more explosive, straight line. But a guy that can move around, can run good routes, he can naturally separate, but then he's really reliable. And a guy that has reliable hands like that, Keith, the quarterbacks always trust him. If you can get open, get to your spots, get and be where I need you to be, and snatch the football, oh yeah, a quarterback, whoever his quarterback is in the NFL, he gets on the field, they're gonna know I can trust Ricky P.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And I like it, Ricky Pearsall. And we'll see, right? And that's the slate, man. That's the slate for the day show. We talked about Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt. We talked about Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. And we talk about Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Guess what, man? We're going to continue to unload these prospects, right? To talk to y'all about them. That's what we do, man. Like we say, we talk college football to the process to the NFL, but it all starts with the NFL draft. And this draft process is getting started, is getting heated up. So y'all know where to stay tapped into, man. You tap into the Locked On NFL Draft podcast each and every single day, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That is my co-host, man, Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL, man. We're having dope conversations, having really good conversations. If y'all agree with the conversation, man, go ahead and comment, like, right, subscribe. If you don't agree with the conversation, go ahead and comment, still subscribe, and then comment and let us know why you don't agree with what we're saying, man. But we're talking draft prospects. We are getting this thing going. Keep getting it rolling, man. I want to say thank you for tapping in with us every single day.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. We got a double dose tomorrow of this and that. We go offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. Then we got the rookie spotlight. What rookie has got to shine in week 15 of the NFL season? We'll talk about that all tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.